Today I'm going to be demonstrating these flowers that I've completed in colored pencil. Hi, I'm Lisa, the artist behind Lachri Fine Art. Today is part one of my floral piece where I am working on the pink and purple flowers in this one. Next week we will be looking at the sunflower and other yellow flowers in this piece. All of the supplies that I used for this one are listed below in the video description. If you are supporters over on Patreon, the 2-hour version of this tutorial is available for you guys now, so make sure to head over and check that out. Now we'll move on to this tutorial. For this one, I am going to start by lining the darkest pink portions of these roses. Everything's going to look very fuzzy for my first couple of layers. That is okay and totally normal. I'm just blocking in approximately where the colors go. Now right now, notice I've got mostly one color on everything and it looks very flat. When I start coming through with the darker greens and the reds on those green areas and then blending the pinks into the cream colors, all of it starts to have a lot more dimension. You don't want to leave anything one solid color or it will look flat and fake. I've blended that out with the Mona Lisa odorless mineral spirits. Gamsol also works. Now I'm moving on to the next rose while the other rose dries from the paint thinner. The first rose is not finished yet. I've done the same thing with this one, and now I'm going to go back to the first rose and do some touch-ups. Adding little details, blending out with the Mona Lisa odorless paint thinner as needed. And I'm using a small Taklon bristled brush for that. This one is a flat that I'm using in this piece. Same thing with this rose. I'm outlining everything, then shading it in. And then I'll come back through with my white pencils to add highlights. I'm using this sepia tone pencil from the Lyra Rembrandt Polycolor set. That was hard to say. Those pencils are actually really good. I will be doing a review on those in the near future. I'm just blocking in one area at a time and then I'll go back and work on previous areas. For me, it's easier to see where I need to adjust contrast and details and such once I get other areas blocked in. So I don't completely finish one area at a time. Those roses there were done exactly like the first three that I showed you, so we just kind of skipped through that. Moving on to this section, this type of flower. I started by blocking in the little dark tips of the petals, which made it easier for me to judge my values of the pinks. Otherwise, I have a tendency to go too light. So by putting those darks in, I was easily able to see that I could go a lot darker on my pink tones. Blending that out with a paint thinner. You can see it's very flat, very not good looking at this point, but that will all have detail added. Everything will look a lot better once I get further into this. I'm just going to keep layering. I am letting it dry in between layers with the Mona Lisa odorless paint thinner. The pencil doesn't stick to it well and you can damage the paper if you're working over wet paper. Building up the details there. I'm adding red into this as well. For some of the deeper areas, I've got a burgundy color and a red color that I'm using. I'm also layering a lot of that red into the green flowers, or I'm sorry, the green leaves to make them look more natural, to give them not so much of a fluorescent green look. Now, when you draw flowers, you really want to think of it as abstract shapes. If you're trying to think, okay, I'm drawing a flower petal, you're going to get frustrated because that flower petal does not look like a flower petal as you're working on it. It all comes together in the end. So if you can kind of convince yourself to look at it as an abstract shape, copy what you see on your reference photo, that is going to make it a lot easier for you. Now, these flowers are all done the same as the one that I had just done above. Just building up more and more little detail. As long as you're working with a light hand and not pushing too hard to start with, you can add tons of layers. One of the biggest tips that I can give you when you're working on anything, whether it be painting or colored pencil, is don't call it finished too soon. I see this so often where people will get about a quarter of the way through and say, yeah, it's done. And it really isn't. You just keep working on it. And with colored pencil, this is one of the reasons that working with a light hand works so well, because it keeps you from damaging your paper and you can just do tons and tons of layers, working and reworking an area until you get it just right. Now with the flowers, one of the big things that causes them to look more three-dimensional is the way that I'm shading and adding contrast around each petal. So any area, especially the lighter areas, notice how much dark I have right next to it. And that pushes the lighter petals forward. This is what's giving me that more three-dimensional look on these and not have them come out looking flat. Don't be afraid of getting contrast. Now for my shadow underneath all of the flowers, notice that it picks up the reflection of whatever is around it. So if there's a pink flower above it, I'm going to have pink reflecting on that shadow on the bottom, the surface, ground, whatever we want to call it. Areas that have green are going to reflect the green. Areas that are purple reflect the purple. In addition to the gray colors that I'm using a base gray color, and then I'm going on top with whatever colors reflect there. So for these little purple flowers, I have to use a whole lot of different pinks in order to get them bright enough. If I just go with purple or magenta, they come out too dark. So I start by using quite a few pinks, and then I will layer my magenta on top of that. I'm saying magenta, that's actually not what it's called. I want to say that pencil's called crimson, and that's in the Polychromos. And again, I'm blocking things in, and it almost looks like a crayon, like a coloring book, what I'm doing at that point, where I'm just blocking it in. It looks fuzzy. It looks just like crayon. Just keep layering until it looks good. And I like to work on one small area at a time, get it mostly finished, and then I will go back and add details as needed to some of the other areas. I jump around like that a lot. And here I was actually taking photos for Instagram and forgot to turn the camera off, and am currently too lazy to edit that out. So back to these flowers. Just lots of detail, lots of layering. And these ones are a big one because they don't have a lot of detail in them. So I'm back to using that shading that I was talking about earlier in order to make it look more three-dimensional. I'm having to depend on the darks around these flowers in order to give them some shape and definition because they themselves don't have much. They're so basic. It's a lot harder to make something that's very basic look good than it is something that's very detailed. And so if you're looking at this piece thinking, oh my gosh, that's a lot of flowers, I don't want to draw that many flowers, it is tedious. I'm not going to lie. It takes forever. But it's easier to make this look good than, say, I was doing a single flower. That single flower is a great study. But with this one, I have so much little detail, so much going on that if I make a massive mistake in one area, it's not a big deal. No one's really going to notice that because there's so much busyness going on. So here, again, I'm back to these abstract shapes. Those greens don't look like much of anything. I'm just going to copy my reference photo as close as possible. And when I do copy the reference photo, I'm not going to stress out and make sure every single line is exactly right. Not on a floral. If I'm doing an animal, it's more important. Or if I'm doing a person, it is very important. On flowers, if one petal's a little too far to the right, a little too far to the left, no one is going to notice the difference. Sure, it's good practice to practice getting it as exact as possible. But with florals, I'm not going to spend as much time making sure that every little thing is exactly the same because in the end it really doesn't matter so much. Not like it would on animals or people. So I'm blocking this in. Now when you blend with the Mona Lisa odorless paint thinner or whatever odorless mineral spirits you may be using, make sure you've got enough pigment on that paper before you blend out. If you blend when there's hardly any on there, it doesn't do a whole lot. It's not doing much to blend. A lot of people will contact me and say, oh, it doesn't look the same. What am I doing wrong? You're probably not getting enough layers of colored pencil on the paper before you blend out. I get about 4, 5, 6 layers of colored pencil. I blend with the odorless mineral spirits, let it dry, do another 4 or 5 or 6 layers, blend with the mineral spirits. And this is a process that I do again and again in order to get these nice rich colors. But if you just put a few layers and think that that's going to blend and look like this, it won't happen. Now these brighter magenta flowers that I had just been working on, those aren't finished. I'm going to come back to those later. I'm going to work on this area for now so I can better judge my contrast and such. So for these flowers, I'm really focusing, making sure I'm getting the dark in between some of these purples. I'm using various shades of purples and bluish purples or ultramarine blues. Just putting a single tone of purple is not going to look right. And the colors that you use, it's not so much important that you're just using the exact same colors that I am or using the exact right colors. It's not about picking the right color. It's about getting your values right. Make sure your lights are light enough and your darks are dark enough. So make sure to head back next week where we will be looking at the rest of these flowers, including a really, really pretty sunflower that I'm so excited to draw. Thanks for watching. Again, if you are supporters over on Patreon, the 2-hour version of this tutorial is available for you guys now, so make sure to head over and check that out. If you are new to my channel, I have new video critiques every Tuesday where I'm critiquing your original paintings or drawings, my own speed paintings, drawings, and tutorials every Wednesday, art Q&A videos every Thursday, and artist vlogs each weekend. So if you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. And you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+. All of those social media sites are linked below in the video description where you can keep up with news, my newest work, and see real-time clips of whatever it is I'm currently working on. I do have a 5-minute real-time clip of this one over on Facebook now. I'll see you guys tomorrow. So originally, I couldn't decide if I wanted this to be 1 or 2 videos. If I broke it up into one video, that meant each section was a lot slower, and with colored pencil being such a slow medium, or it just takes so long, that would have meant the video as a one part would have been really, really fast. So by breaking it up, I'm able to slow it down and you can see more. But I still was kind of undecided. But then on Sunday, I had the opportunity to go down to Houston to meet with Aliona Nicholson. She is the author of the Colored Pencil Bible and the one who invented the powder blender. So that ate into one of my normal working days, and it was so much fun and so worth it. I came home, she was just seriously shoving art supplies in a trash bag for me to try. Like, she wouldn't let me leave without it. I'm surprised I didn't end up with her cat and her couch with all the stuff that she gave me to test out. The point of that you guys are gonna find interesting is she sent me home with a set of the Lyra Rembrandt Polycolor colored pencils, which I used quite a bit in this piece. I actually liked them a lot. So we will have a review in the near future of those pencils. So there was one day of my normal artwork eaten up. Then a couple of days ago, Greg McKnight, the pianist that I sometimes play with here on YouTube, he decided that we should go kayaking. So random. Neither one of us had ever been, but I live really close to a lake, so like seriously 5 minutes away. So we decided to actually take advantage of that, and oh my gosh, it was so much fun, and I was so tired, and I got almost no work done that day either. I was just behind work-wise, so I was like, well, decision made, because there's no way this is getting done in 1 week. So yeah, 2-part video now. Also, kayaking, if you've never been, so fun. Now I have to save up and buy myself a kayak. I wonder if my studio assistants would enjoy kayaking, because the one that I'm looking at getting has a spot for dogs. Have to get cute puppy life vests for them. Honestly, I want to do that just because I think dog life vests are adorable. I have issues.